What's going on, everybody? This is Steve with Eat the Hatchet. I'm back. I guess we can maybe call this season 2, maybe. I don't know if this is going to be a consistent thing, but just kind of we'll be popping in here and there just to talk about some Blackhawks news, and just whenever I kind of feel the need to. Maybe every week we'll kind of see. Don't really count anything similar to last year, but these are meant to be short, 15 minutes maybe, and let's kind of kick into it. So just a couple of Hawks stuff to talk about for some news. Hawks are obviously in the middle of preseason. They only played one game, even though the NHL as a whole, I think they've been playing like maybe around 10 games like in total. I'm not sure, don't quote me on that. But they made some roster cuts. Their first round of cuts came on Tuesday, and it was just some players that were going to go play with their respective CHL clubs, and those players include former first-round pick Marek Vanacker, Jack Pridham, Nathan Bem, and Parker Holmes. So none of those players had like a real shot to make the NHL roster, obviously because they're in the CHL. So with the contract agreement, they can't play in the AHL. There's a caveat which I'll get to, and it's probably better for all those players to go into the CHL, vice jumping straight ahead into the NHL, or then a new rule, which I don't think they're implementing this year. I haven't seen anything, but the next CBA has a rule in place where CHL players, if they're currently 19 years old, they cannot play with an AHL team. However, NHL teams can elect one 19-year-old player who has a CHL contract to play in the AHL, and that helps with players who might be ahead of their peers in the CHL, like Kevin Korchinski, right? I think he's a perfect example where he was dominating, like he had nothing else to learn from the CHL, which is why he went to the NHL and he played that whole first year, right? Because he can't play in the AHL, the minor leagues, because of that contract rule. So for a player like Kevin Korchinski, it probably would have been beneficial for him to play in the AHL first, vice going into the NHL. So this new rule allows a CHL player to go into the AHL, but one per team. So yeah. And then the second round of cuts just came in today, and that is, I'm just pulling it up really quick. It wasn't really anybody of note. It was a lot of AHL players, and Rockford, they start their training camp, I believe, tomorrow, so it makes sense for them to go down there. But Brett Seney, Kevin Fitzgerald, Andrew Perreault, Paul Ludwinski, Tage Harding, Dmitry Kuzmin, and Ryan Mast were all assigned to Rockford. And then Fitzgerald and Seney, who Seney was in the Blackhawks. I can't remember if he was drafted by the Hawks. I don't think so. But he was in the Hawks system, and then he signed a contract with Rockford. So Seney and Fitzgerald, both AHL players, they were actually on a PTO to play with the Blackhawks, which includes another player I'll talk about in a little bit. But yeah, that's pretty much it for Hawks news. They did play their preseason game, a loss 3-2 against the Red Wings. And first preseason game, I'm not going to overreact. However, there are some things that are a little concerning, particularly from the defensive zone, and more so to specific players, right? Like Kevin Korchinski, who I just talked about, wasn't good in his own end. Now, I care more about what he can do on offense, but if he wants to be a defenseman in the NHL, he does need to clean up a lot of things, right? So particularly his passing on the breakouts were pretty horrendous. There were some moments where he tried to do a reverse and there wasn't anybody behind him except an opponent to pick up the puck, and that ended up becoming a turnover. So things like that. The rest of the mistakes weren't glaring just because it's Frank Nazar and Connor Bedard aren't going to be playing 100%, and I thought they looked fine. Bedard looked really fast, but the competition he was playing against on that night was a bunch of Detroit's AHL players, so it shouldn't be surprising. Artem Levshinov was like a big point of contention, where he had like a couple really good plays, more so in the third period, but he wasn't very good. He made a lot of mistakes, and that could be because he was paired with Louis Crevier, right? And I think he was. I don't got the notes with me right now, but either way, I'm pretty sure it was Louis Crevier. His partner wasn't doing him any favors, right? And regardless of who his partner was, unless it was Kevin Korchinski, Sam Rizzo, which Rizzo is also a right-handed defenseman. Levshinov was paired up with somebody who is not going to be a good NHL defenseman, and that could have impacted Levshinov's game. That doesn't excuse the mistakes that he made, but there is an argument to be made if he should go straight to the AHL. I'm personally leaning towards him being in the NHL. I know that's not a popular take, but we'll see. I'm going to wait until I see more of him in the preseason before I take back me thinking he should go into the NHL, but we'll see. Kevin Korchinski was honestly more disappointing than I thought of Levshinov, because Korchinski, it looks like, you don't want to give up on young players, especially defensemen, but you want to see him be a bit more aggressive. He looks a little hesitant, which is what I also saw from Lukas Reichel, and Reichel didn't have a good game, and he's a player where, like I just said, Nazar and Bedard, they don't have to play 100%. Well, Reichel does, because he needs to show that he can crack a decent spot in the lineup on opening night. And Reichel's skill set is more suited, in my opinion, for middle six, maybe second line wing. But if he can't prove to them that he deserves to be on the second line, he's going to be on the bottom six, and that isn't going to be helping him, because he's not that's a role that doesn't fit him. So that's not going to do him any favors. So, he needs to have a good camp. And the first game, he didn't look good. And tonight, Blackhawks play. They play the St. Louis Blues at 6 p.m. And that's another area where Reichel is going to have to show up, right? So let's talk about tonight's game for a little bit. And it's not a big game, right? Like Bedard and Nazar, they're not in the lineup. It is a bunch of fringe NHL players, so it's it's nobody there's a couple people you want to watch, but and they're going to be going up against the St. Louis Blues their roster is a lot closer to their NHL roster than what the Blues or the Blackhawks have. So if it is going to be a beating, which it very might well be, don't look at this critically like we did in the last game. And we got in the starting lineup, I'll read it off. First line, you got Doc, Green, and Moore. Second line, Nick Lardis, Cates, Reichel. Third line, Mikheyev, Dickinson, Lafferty. And then the fourth line is Tony Nato, Misiak, and Hayes. So of the forwards on the top line, Oliver Moore, I'm going to be watching to see if he's more than just a fast guy, if he can actually create scoring chances. Ryan Green, it'll be interesting to see how he does at center on a first-line role. He's probably going to go to Rockford. And then Colton Dach, we'll want to see his physicality. He was a very physical player in the last game. So, of those players, I'm going to be watching more. Second line, we got a dude named Cates. So Jackson Cates, He is a Rockford player. Last time he played in the NHL was 5 games in the 2022-23 season, so he's not anybody that's going to be making the Blackhawks roster. So if you saw that name and you were like, who the hell is that guy? That's what I did, and that's who he is. So I'm sure he's a nice guy, but I don't really care too much about him. What I do care about is his wingmates. Nick Lardis, this is going to be his first preseason game, so we want to see him scoring goals because that's what he's known for, and we want to see how he can score those goals, or at least get into those scoring areas of the ice. Lucas Reichel, like I said, I want to see him have a fantastic game today. I don't care that it's preseason for him. And, just to be real, I think we've already have the ship sailing on Reichel. I think he is going to get traded to go to somewhere else. But, yeah. And then our bottom 6 players, there isn't anybody that really I think is worth watching a whole lot. Maybe Gavin Hayes on the 4th line, just because I don't want to say he wasn't a highly rated prospect or anything, but well, just watch him, I guess. But more importantly is the defense, however you want to say that. On the blue line, you got first pairing Kevin Korchinski with Nolan Allen. Recently signed to a PTO, Matt Grzelcyk with Louis Crevier. And then Del Mastro and Murphy on the 3rd pairing with Cumby, a recent draft pick, as the 7th guy in. So, again, going to be looking at Kevin Korchinski mostly. Nolan Allen, I don't know if he'll be good or not. And if he is cool, he's probably a 3rd-pair defenseman in the NHL at best, but not too, worried about him. Grzelcyk is waiting on the fringes to take one of these spots from the young guys, so he is not like Cates, where Cates is an AHL player. Grzelcyk is trying to get on an NHL team. So if the Blackhawks release Grzelcyk, he is not going to go to Rockford. He's just done with the Blackhawks. So Louis Crevier, I could do a whole episode on this guy, but nothing to really watch from him, really. Del Mastro on the 3rd pairing with Murphy. You do want to watch Del Mastro get basically improve, right? So he had a really rough preseason game against the Red Wings, and I would love to see him have a solid game tonight. And then in net, you got Spencer Knight backed up with Bereznoy. Spencer Knight, obviously Blackhawks #1 goaltender, looking like he'll be in net for the whole game tonight, according to Ben Pope. And then Bereznoy, he is going to be the backup in Rockford, and he had a really strong prospect showcase. That was he posted pretty good save percentage. I know, prospect showcase doesn't really mean anything. So that's pretty much it for our little preview. Gonna do some quick NHL notes before I wrap this thing up. We got Mason McTavish with the Anaheim Ducks. He signed a 6-year extension with a $7 million AAV. So it's really good for him. I know there was a lot of rumors about him potentially getting traded. Duck GM Pat Verbeek said, hell no, he's not going to be moving, so don't even think about it. And that's good. Good that it got done. I think the Ducks are going to be a very fun team to watch. I think they're going to get close to a playoff spot in this season. We'll see how things go, but things are kind of opening up for that wild card spot in the Pacific. With Vancouver, I don't know how well they'll do this season. The Flames, like last year, they kind of surprised everybody, so it really is kind of open, and we'll see. I got hopes for the Ducks. Marc-Andre Fleury, he signed a PTO with the Pittsburgh Penguins. And this is kind of cool. He'll be actually playing tonight. I think they're playing against the Columbus Blue Jackets. Just had it up to you. But basically, he's retiring and he's just suiting up in Pittsburgh for one last time. Absolute Penguin legend, obviously. Great goaltender. Every team he's been on, even briefly with the Chicago Blackhawks, he's been a favorite among players, among fans, so it's really cool what he's doing here, where he's getting one chance to say goodbye. And I think I heard somewhere on the Daily Faceoff that tickets for tonight's game in Pittsburgh, they're like pretty expensive for a preseason game. Like I think starting at $90. And I think it's going to be worth going to. They're going to have some sweet giveaways and stuff, so worth checking out. And then this is some bad news for the Panthers. Barkov, he is out for the season. He was injured during practice a couple days ago, hurt his knee, and then ended up needing surgery. I think it was like an ACL tear, and he's out for 7 to 9 months. So it's huge. That's not good. I think for the Panthers, they'll be fine, but it hurts, right? Because Barkov's not the only big player that's out for the Panthers. You got Matthew Tkachuk, who's expected to return in December. So for the Panthers, they're going to be, I think, they're going to be looking like they're, I don't want to say struggling, but people are going to be questioning them a little bit, I think, until December. And then once Tkachuk comes back, I think they'll kind of play better. Like last year, they were kind of not playing 100%. They were pacing themselves for a third consecutive Stanley Cup final appearance, and obviously we all know how that ended. But yeah, and then Frank Cervalli pointed out, kind of interesting. So he's out 7 to 9 months. 7 months is April, 9 months is June. So just in time for playoffs. I think that sucks, right? We play the Panthers first game of the season. I don't want to say anything like disrespectful to the guy of like, good thing for the Blackhawks, we might win, because that sucks. It's a significant amount of time. You don't like to see it. So it's pretty much it. I might be back next week. Who knows? But my show's back, kind of. Eat the Hatchet newsletter's back, kind of. Just posting my articles from OnTap Sportsnet. I'm still very much active in creating stuff over there, and this is just more of my usual creative outlet stuff for Blackhawks content. I'm not chasing SEO here or anything like that, so I'm not going to tell you to subscribe and ring any bells or anything. If you like the show, cool. If you don't, sorry. But if you don't like the show, but you have constructive feedback, I would love to hear it. Otherwise, I don't really care. I'm just doing this. So have a great day. Have a great weekend. And I will be back sometime in the future. Out.